Good morning. Welcome. Beautiful Monday morning. I'm thrilled to be with you for this webinar, Trajectories, Insights on an Intensive Early Childhood Education and Care Model for Children Living with Significant Family Stress. My name's Emma Sydenham. I'm Director of Early Childhood at Social Ventures Australia and a Director on the board of Parkville Institute. I would love to acknowledge always we're calling in with our feet firmly on the grounds of Aboriginal lands across the country. I'd like to acknowledge the lands on which the Parkville Institute office is on, Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Bunurong Bunwurrung people of the Eastern Kulin Nation, and the traditional owners that I'm calling in from, the lands of the Wadawurrung people here in Kwakadoula, and the lands that you're all calling in from today. We acknowledge the immense richness, diversity and strengths in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander child rearing practices, which we are all learning from today and have seen children nurtured and supported for more than 60,000 years. Recognise the continuing connections to lands, water, culture and communities, and that lands have never been ceded. We pay our respects to elders past and present. So what are we here to talk about today? Well, you'll hear a lot about Parkville Institute, an innovative research and practice institute established by Dr. Anne Kennedy and Associate Professor Brigid Jordan AM. Parkville Institute's led a project over the last few years with 3 service providers, who you'll also hear from today, to replicate the Early Years Education Program, which is an intensive, high-quality early childhood education and care program designed to enable infants and young children living with significant family stress and social disadvantage to enter school confident, successful learners and on par with their peers. So for me, some of the clear, unique qualities of this work already stand out: that ongoing gap in early learning settings for programs designed to work deeply with babies and toddlers. So from birth to 3, we're looking at here. And secondly, those who've already experienced significant adversity and trauma. So with the 3 replication sites well into operation now in this project, Parkville Institute and its partners are ready to share some of their insights and their learnings about replication of this model. What are some of the enablers for success? What are some of the early impacts? What are we seeing on the ground? What changes are happening for children and families? There's a report that captures some of these insights that Parkville Institute commissioned from Orange Compass, which you can download from the website and we can share with you following the webinar. But for the format today, I'll pass shortly to Anne and Brigid to hear more about Parkville Institute and this work. And then we'll then have a panel discussion joined by the 3 service providers who are replicating the program. There will be a Q&A function that you should see there available, and please do add in any questions you'd like us to consider, and I'll try to weave them into the panel discussion. I've been working with this program for quite a few years now, supporting Anne and Brigid, and the more I learn about it, the more passionate that I become about seeing more children in need across the country be able to access it. It really is extraordinary work. And when I think about what feels most powerful for me in this, I think it's that deep understanding of each child from multiple different professional lenses, the respect, the high expectations and the care for each child, for their learning, for their development, for their emotional needs, and accompanying that with the structures and processes that actually enable that to happen. And at a time when the sector is so stretched and so pushed, we see so much stress within there, seeing a model which actually enables the kind of support to meet children's needs is really quite extraordinary. And particularly at a time when we're seeing more complex needs within families, more deep intergenerational trauma and disadvantage, this program has never been more important. So to share more with you on this, I'm delighted to introduce you to the founders and the executive directors of Parkville Institute, Dr. Anne Kennedy, who I'm sure you all know, a highly respected and experienced leader in the early childhood sector, her long career as both a teacher and academic, working across Australia, Sweden, Singapore and the US. She sits on many boards and government advisory groups and has certainly shaped our understanding of early learning in this country. Also joined by Brigid Jordan, a leading social worker, infant mental health clinician, academic and researcher, a well-recognised leader in the field. She's worked with the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne for 35 years. Over to you, Anne and Brigid.
Thanks, Emma. Bridie, if you could move to the next slide, please. I'll just talk a bit about Parkville Institute, and we are a research and practice institute, and we're very committed to the relationship between practice and research, and our commitment is to infants and toddlers living with the most significant levels of adversity. I'll talk today about our replication research. We're doing some other work that I'll refer to later, and that's informed by implementation science principles. Emma has already made reference to the early years education program model and the randomised controlled trial of that. And the early years education program was initiated by Kids First, previously known as the Children's Protection Society, and they're an independent not-for-profit child and family service based in the northeast of Melbourne. And they were founded in 1896, so many years ago. And the program, the EYEP model, was designed and implemented by CPS in collaboration with Anne Kennedy and myself. And we were also, Anne and I, part of the University of Melbourne research team, which also included economists that evaluated the model. And children did succeed in achieving the aim of that trial, which was to become equal to their Australian community peers at the end of 3 years participation, and equal in terms of their development and capacity for learning. And the impact of participating in the trial, participating in the program for 3 years was an average 7-point increase in IQ, with the effects being concentrated on the children who had a baseline IQ of less than 90, and they improved by an average of 14 points. And there was also significant and sustained improvement in social emotional development and fewer behavioural problems in the control group. That evidence was so compelling that we felt that we needed to think about how would it be possible for other children in Australia living with the same adversity to have their needs met. Bridie, next slide, please. Thank you. So who were the children and families? So eligibility was to have 2 risk factors, and roughly a third of the children had 2 to 3 risk factors. More than that had 4 to 5, and a similar number had 6 to 9 risk factors. And Melbourne Institute have just been working on the data from the replication trial, and the average number of risk factors for the children participating in the replication trial is 6 risk factors, so it's even more. The risk factors are similar, except there's more focus in the current cohort on attachment or relationship issues, and a high frequency of those than alcohol or substance use. Thanks, Bridie. So the profile means that the original EYEP study and the current replication trial is successfully targeting a cohort of children at the most severe end of the spectrum of disadvantage. And if I could have the next slide, please, Bridie. So why are we doing a replication research project? Well, it's quite rare for a replication trial to be conducted in early childhood education and care. But what is well documented is that innovative social programs suffer from what's called voltage drop. So once they get rolled out or scaled up, they don't have the same effectiveness with a new population. And there are there's a lot of evidence about why that might be. And so Anne and I in Parkville Institute have been very intentional and deliberate in how we've approached replication in terms of the supports that we've put in place and the strategies to prevent voltage drop. So we've got 3 questions really in the replication trial. Number 1, is it possible to recruit the cohort of children that we're focused on? And early indicators are yes. Number 2, can the model be successfully implemented with fidelity, like as the program was designed in diverse settings? And you'll hear from our partners who are leading the implementation of the program at 3 centres. And do the children in the research childcare centres achieve the same outcomes as in the original randomised controlled trial? And those results will be available after 1 and 2 years. The overarching sort of question informing all this is, what are the enablers and the challenges in implementing the program with fidelity in diverse settings? And next slide, please, Brigid. So these are our partners, Uniting Big Tas, and we have Fiona, who will speak later, C&K in Queensland, and Sandra Cheeseman is on the call, and Sherelle is representing City of Ballarat and will also speak later. The co-development project that we are doing in partnership with SNAKE, Social Ventures Australia, and Kulingati Aboriginal Child and Family Centre is a separate stream of work. It's not the focus of today, and that's where we've worked with Aboriginal partners to develop a program that is suited to the needs of the children in their community. Thanks. I'll hand over to Anne now. You're muted, Dan.
Morning and welcome to everyone, and thank you for that welcome, Emma. I do want, just before I go into this, I do want to add to Emma's comments and Brigid's comments and pay tribute to the original trial centre and the staff team, the managers, the leaders, and the educators and teachers and ancillary staff who worked in that original trial centre, because they implemented the model and they did a fantastic work and showed us that it was possible to change life trajectories through pedagogical intervention. So, you know, as a pedagogic person, I'm really grateful for the work they did. So this report that Emma has talked about is called the Early Implementation Insights Report. It was Parkville Institute commissioned Orange Compass to undertake this report because we felt there were signals to us that the model was being implemented faithfully, as Brigid said, with fidelity, and that we were seeing signs that children are on track in terms of their development and learning. The report involved interviews with our funders. We have multiple funders, government funders and philanthropic funders, and we're grateful to those funders: Australian Government, Victorian Government, Paul Ramsay Foundation, Whig Family Foundation, Bryan Foundation, and others. Interviews with our staff, the Parkville Institute staff. Some of those staff members, in fact, our 4 senior advisors, all worked on the original trial. Our service partners executive, who are with us today on the panel, educators and the centre leadership teams. There was also an educator survey, and all that data was collated and analysed by Orange Compass. So what are the key insights? And this is high level, I guess, from my perspective, but I think what we've taken away from the report and all the evidence is that the elements are working in service for and with the children, families and staff. I think the other important aspect that comes from the evidence is that the ethics and the demands of relationships and partnerships matter. And I know when we're tendering and developing programs and models, we always talk about partnerships and relationships, etc. But I don't know that we give them attention enough in terms of the demands on the participants and the complicated ethics involved when you've got multiple partners delivering to highly disadvantaged families and children. And absolutely convinced that unless we have that sort of approach, that ethical approach to relationships and partnerships, we'll never achieve systems change and the stewardship we require if we want to improve outcomes for children. And if we've learned anything from that dreadful Four Corners recent program, is that what is missing is often that the ethics about what we do and how we do it with children and families and with all our partners. I think under the right conditions and the right authorising environments, early childhood education and care has the capacity to change the most vulnerable children's life trajectories. That's at the heart of my belief. It's why I'm still working in this sector after so many years, that we have the possibility, it is possible that you can change children's life trajectories if you get the relationships, the pedagogy and the curriculum at the standard, at the quality standard needed. I think the other insight that I take away from the report is that it was so powerful to hear the voices and the insights of the teachers and educators and their incredible capacity and capability and professional confidence. Emma mentioned that too in her introduction, that this work is only possible when you have teams who are skilled, supported and committed to doing this work. Thanks, Bridie. And this are just some of the quotes from the report. And this came from one of our pedagogical leaders. All our centres, replication centres, have a full-time pedagogical leader. We see that as an essential role. When I realised that the work that we're doing here is just so respectful to children and families, the question in my head is how I ever actually go back to working in a space that is pushing children through things. And we hear that a lot from staff in our centres. This is so different from the way I've been working. This is the way I've always wanted to work. And now I will have to continue to work in this way. In the literature, sometimes that's called a threshold type concept, where you go through a threshold where you can no longer practice as you did before, you have to practice in new ways. From the educator perspectives, our approach to leadership and relational ways of working enable the staff to implement across all the levels in the centre and with the service provider and Parkville. And we support that capacity building around relational ways of working for staff. We have a particular leadership model. We have a particular leadership theory that informs our work. And Parkville provides that kind of backbone support in partnership with service providers to make sure staff feel confident about how the model is implemented and implemented with fidelity. And there was 100% staff agreement about the relationships with children and how that supported the teachers and educators to be effective in their role, and their relationships with families and carers also help them to be effective in this role. So the timeline for this research and the outcomes report, do also want to acknowledge that our evaluation partner is Melbourne Institute, the Applied Economic and Social Research. Melbourne Institute will produce 3 reports covering the research and outcomes of the replication research project. And this is the evaluated from the original trial, and we pay tribute to Associate Professor Yiping Seng for this work. The first report is already released, is already finished, the baseline report on participating children. That gives us the background to the children who are participating in the replication trial, and that report will be available soon. Don't think it's on our website yet, but it will be up soon. Then early next year, we'll have the first year report on children's outcomes. That's the one we're all waiting to see, of course. And then at the end of 26, we'll have the second year report on children's outcomes, which we are hopeful and have confidence that will show remarkable outcomes across developmental and learning domains, as we did in the original trial. I think that's probably all from me. And then I think it's back to you, Emma, and the panel.
Great, thanks, Anne. I wonder, while we're sort of bringing up the panel, if it'd be helpful just to provide a quick summary of the model for those who might be new to it.
Right, well, the model's got several elements, maybe some high points. We above standard ratio, so 1:3 for under 3s and 1:6 for over 3s. Small group sizes, 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks of the year. A leadership team comprising centre coordinator, pedagogical leader, who are full-time, a part-time infant mental health consultant and a part-time family practice consultant, working in a flat leadership structure, making that, as you said, Emma, those multidisciplinary perspectives on each child and family. 75% of children's nutritional needs met every day. Very important. We're seeing increasing amount of food insecurity in all our families. So that's an important element. And a focus on what we're using that concept of relational pedagogy that encompass that the importance of the relationships and how they impact on children's learning and development. That's probably a quick snapshot. Yep.
Wonderful. Thanks, Anne. That's very helpful. And now we will move to our panel. So we are also joined by Dr. Sandra Cheeseman, CEO of C&K Childcare and Kindergarten from a centre in Queensland, Sherelle Knight, Executive Manager, Family, Youth and Children's Services, the City of Ballarat, and Fiona Balsali, from the General Manager of Early Learning at Uniting Vic Tas, also from a centre in Victoria. So thank you so much all for joining. Really looking forward to exploring what you're seeing in replicating this model on the ground. I wonder whether, to get us started, if maybe we could each describe briefly for us your service, where you're located, and share with us a little bit about why you were interested in becoming a partner in this project. Sandra, can we start with you, please?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, great to be here. And C&K is really proud to have been able to partner on one of the replication sites. We were really interested when we saw the opportunity to join this program because we were seeing more and more children come into mainstream centres that it was very, very difficult to sort of provide the level of support that those families and children really needed. And in many cases, it was very challenging for staff to just be trying to deliver a program around complex child and family needs in a mainstream funded program. And so to see this model, I had really followed the original trial very closely, and I was really interested to see the results of that. So the opportunity to do something a bit different and to really focus on children birth to 3, these were really appealing things for us. I think a lot of focus has been put on children at age 4, but to see a program that focused on children birth to 3 and to set up the environment that was specifically around nurturing children of that age was really, really appealing. Yeah, and we've just been really proud to have been able to be a part of that.
Thanks, Sandra. Sherelle.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sherelle Knight, and I'm coming to you from the land of the Wadawurrung people, and from Ballarat, which is a regional city in Victoria. It's about the 3rd largest city, a population just under 120,000 people. And originally, when we applied for the program, we submitted an expression of interest to a funding opportunity that the Victorian Department of Education had offered. So we weren't originally a replication site when we submitted our application, but we were really very excited by this opportunity to make sure that we saw it as an opportunity for Ballarat's most vulnerable children to have a program that was really targeted at their needs and at a place where they needed to be. So we knew here in Ballarat that we have a couple of communities that are amongst the most disadvantaged in the state, which is evidenced in the AEDC data and also in NAPLAN data. So we really, our intentions were to try to support these children here in Ballarat and saw it as really as an opportunity for us to be stepping into this space. We already provide some long day care and kindergarten options in Ballarat. We provide, provide a lot of universal services and some targeted services as well. We knew that we could, in Ballarat, the early years sector is quite a connected sector. Most people know each other and generally work pretty well together. So we knew that we could call on those partnerships and relationships that we have with those stakeholders already to really try and get this program up and running. So I guess, we really saw it as a great opportunity. We knew it wasn't going to be easy, and it certainly wasn't easy to get it going, but we were incredibly committed to try and make this happen for our kids. So that's really the Ballarat journey to getting it for our motivation.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sherelle. Fiona, what interested you in the program?
Thanks, Emma. Hi, everybody. I'm Fiona, and I'm here in Melbourne today. So our site is located in one of the inner suburbs of Melbourne, Richmond. And this particular site does actually have a number of social housing and community housing surrounding it, which was a key point when we were looking at where we could do this. But I also wanted to touch on Uniting as an organization. We have a large arm, which is the early learning stream, which is what I lead. But we're also an organization that is about a number of social services that we provide. So we run AOD programs, mental health programs, child, youth and family programs, emergency relief. So this opportunity to sort of bring together all of the mission pieces of Uniting as an organization was really exciting for us. It was really being able to bring that connection together, and for us as an early learning division to sort of lead in something really exciting that we'd already seen some of the results from the original site. So for us, this was a really exciting opportunity that we applied for and have been so excited to partner and be part of this replication. And it is absolutely the mission and values of Uniting. Supporting the most vulnerable people in our community is what we're all about. So this opportunity to do this from an early learning lens was extremely important and exciting for us.
Thanks, Fiona. Sandra, you mentioned you were interested in doing something different. How is this different from what you're already doing in your other work? What does this enable, this program?
I guess it comes down to some of the fundamental core ingredients of this program. So children coming in at birth to 3, 5 days a week for 5 hours a day. And that is different to children coming in randomly. Up at the time that we established, the activity test was still in play under a CCS model. And so that prevented children from having that sort of regular access. And I think that that's one of the key ingredients is this everyday, day in, day out, 5 days a week, and it really builds up that sort of a confidence, trust, pattern, confidence of children. So I think that's one of the key things. The other is the multidisciplinary team, and I think we don't see that in mainstream early childhood settings. And perhaps we don't need to see it right across the board in all settings, but in this particular setting and with children with these complex needs, this has been sort of the real revelation, I think, is watching how this multidisciplinary team comes together with shared goals and values, ways of working. And as Sherelle said, yeah, it's not necessarily easy to do, but it's certainly been really worthwhile navigating that space. So I think they're probably just a couple of the key ingredients for me that make it a different way of working. And a much more sort of targeted and focused way of working.
Thanks, Sandra. I think what we're all interested in is seeing change for children, seeing kids thriving, learning, starting school, ready, and also emotionally strong. Sherelle, do you want to share with us a little about, does it work? What are sort of some of the changes you're seeing sort of with educators, with children, with families? What does that look like for you?
Yes, certainly, Emma. I think that we're seeing some early signs about impact for families. I mean, we're dealing with families with really quite complex backgrounds. So to have the commitment to come to a program 5 days a week is a stretch for a lot of these families. When they're up against things like poor routines, but certainly transport is an issue. I mean, there's an example that we have of one mother who travels an hour and a half every day each way, 2 bus routes to reach the centre. So it is challenging to get families into the program, but once they're in, they see the benefit. They understand the commitment they want. They see the benefits that are happening to for their children. And are really wanting to see, commit to attending the program. Certainly with the children, my team have given me an example of a child who started last year, has been in the program about 12 months. When they started, they were unable to regulate their behaviour. They were non-verbal. They weren't initiating any support or any interaction with carers or other children. And to see the turnaround in that time where this child is now about 90% verbal, is seeking out support, is initiating play with other children. So I think some of those changes are really quite significant for these children. So to have the opportunity to have that intensive support, building that trusted relationship with educators in a space that's really gentle and nurturing is really, highly valuable.
It's great to hear some of those kind of what are the factors or conditions that are supporting those outcomes through there. Thanks, Sherelle. Fiona, what sort of changes are you seeing in your centre? What does it look like for children and families there?
And I might just add to some of what Sandra and Sherelle have already said. I wanted to highlight all of the positions that we've got at these services are so unique, and the multidisciplinary team is just so important. And even down to having a full-time receptionist, that means when those families come in that door and something might be happening for the family member or the child, there are people there to support all aspects of that. There's space for the child to go to their room and be with their educator, and then there's space for that family member that might need to offload what's going on, and we have spots for them to do that, spaces for them to move into and have those conversations, and then connect in with all of the other resources that might need to be available to that person. So I think it's about the time and capacity in the moments where it's needed that we just don't see in our standard services, because we're sort of really pulling at all of those time restraints in our standard services. So I think this framework where we have time for the in the moment issues just makes such a difference to what we can do for all of the people coming through the door at our services.
And so what does that mean for these children or families, having that time and space to set aside and be responsive to things that may be coming up on a day-to-day basis? Sort of what do you see sort of the shifts in children?
Yeah, sure. So our team is sort of seeing what they call a one-stop shop. So these families can come in and get the support they need. The children are building relationships at all different levels with other children, teacher-child relationship. They can see teacher-teacher relationships, parent-child relationships. They're seeing a variety of relationships that they wouldn't necessarily be exposed to without this opportunity. So I think that's one of the key things the team is really seeing for these children and for families, for them to see the different interactions that can occur in a safe space where people are not there to challenge them, but to support them and be there for them. And those smaller group ratios that we have just make such a significant difference to being able to connect those dots for those family and for the children to see what is a positive relationship. It's okay to have challenges. It's okay to be feeling frustrated and angry, because they have the time and capacity to move through those feelings and how they're feeling in that moment. So I think it's that real time that we just don't see in our standard services to be able to deliver to our children and families.
Sandra, is there anything that's resonating with you there in terms of children and families? And also, can I ask you about staff and what you're seeing from staff and what you're hearing from them as they implement the program? how does it change things for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the things really importantly for staff is that they can see the impact of the work that they're doing every day. And so I hear reports through of situations. One of the most beautiful, it was about 2 18-month-old twins who were not sleeping. They weren't going to bed till sort of 11, 12 at night. Mum was absolutely run ragged. And after just a few months at the centre and establishing that routine, the children started to go to bed at a reasonable hour. The whole household routine changed. And the children were just much calmer. And so that just changed absolutely everything for that family. And I just don't think we would have got the same level of impact had those children been attending a mainstream service without the sort of added ingredients of the ratios and the qualifications of staff. And I think one of the really key things is that everyone has a qualification, everyone's qualification is really valued, and there's that ongoing professional learning that's provided through Parkville that just keeps everybody continually growing, continually learning, continually facing the challenges that they're facing together and working out different perspectives and different ways of approaching the challenges that they're facing. And then I think that component of the professional supervision and anyone who's working in these environments with children and families that are experiencing this level of stress and challenge really do need that opportunity for that professional supervision. And so I think it's those built-in components that help staff to be able to do this work really successfully, but then to be able to see in a very concrete way the impact that they're having on each child and family's life. And it's not to say it's smooth sailing or that every day is a sunny day and there's a wonderful story to tell, but I think it's those component parts that join together to make sure that there are enough sunny days and there's enough really really good stories to keep people really engaged in this work and I think really value and see the opportunity that they've got within this program.
Sandra, and we're hearing sort of a lot through each of those reflections, a lot about the relationships at different levels and the impact of the quality of those relationships. It's been really fascinating, the work of Parkville Institute, for me to sort of give life to what we mean by relational practice. I wondered whether you wanted to share some of your reflections on why that's important and what that enables throughout the different, layers of this between the multidisciplinary staff, with Parkville Institute and its partners, between the educators and families, between the educators and children. So each of those, if you can just chat us through, why is it so important to have those quality relationships and what does it mean?
Well, it's at the heart of the model, I think. And it's what I said when I was talking about the Insights report, that this work is based on relationships, and all children need to have that sense of security and that sense of attachment with someone who cares about them in order to learn, in order to thrive. And most children are getting that somewhere. But for these children, that's often compromised or challenged or difficult. And so with Brigid's infant mental health background and my pedagogical background, I think we brought those two elements together. I think this is, everyone's mentioning this multidisciplinary perspective, and I think that's what's come together here, a strong sense of, either one wouldn't be enough on its own. You need to bring together both a strong education pedagogy background, so you understand about learning and you understand about development, and you enrich that with knowledge around infant mental health particularly. And so that's the foundation for the relationship model that makes the difference. And that's why relationships matter with our partners, they matter with our families, they matter with the children, they matter between the staff. So there's a strong sense of collegiality in that staff team, in the staff teams. And that's quite tangible when we go to visit. We can sense that collegiality, that shared commitment, and that's come from the service partners, it's come through to the leadership team, and it flows through to the staff, and that flows through to the family. They feel that sense of safety and security. Every child and family is welcomed every day. No judgments. But plenty of action. You need help, we're here to help. And we can, we've got the capacity in that, as Fiona said, we're not time constrained, place constrained, or people constrained. The model works to support those relationships.
Yeah, you're also talking some of the really strong enablers for success there. Yeah. Brigid, I wonder whether you wanted to add anything to that around, this has been quite a complex phase. What are there any other sort of critical enablers that you've seen that have been really important for effective replication?
Yeah, I would just like to underline what Anne said, because what maybe is sometimes less visible is that the parents of children living in these circumstances often have a history of having been had very poor relationships in their own family. And so, if you like, their model of how to do relationships is, can be problematic for their interactions with other people. It comes from a place of trauma or trying to live with the after effects of trauma. It can be hard for them to be an available, secure base for their children. So it can sometimes be challenging, I think, in the centres to help the children or the parents realise that they are being welcomed, they're not being judged, that everybody wants the best for the children. But there is the time and the space to be very intentional, and the multidisciplinary team to support the educators in how they approach parents and how they respond to behaviours that might be seen as provocative or, unacceptable or whatever. So, but it's not the only piece of work. It really is the education. And I think it is the commitment and the qualification of the educators and the strong relationships that they make with the children. And I think that is, that is helped by the small groups. So I feel like they really get to know the children and they really get to know the families. And so then that really helps with them in kind of designing the strategies to support the children's learning, because they've got a good understanding of how this child copes with upset or trauma, or whether they embrace challenges or they feel overwhelmed by challenges, like is a new learning opportunity seen as an opportunity for the child or a threat to the child. So they can be very nuanced in how they support the children's learning. And so I think that's been very important. The number one enabler is the values alignment with all of our partners. That's the number one alignment, because it means that we're number one enabler. We're all starting on the same page in terms of commitment. I think, in a way, the courage of the partners to, partner on such an innovative it's an experiment. It's a replication trial. We did this once. There were great outcomes for the children. Is it possible to do it again in diverse settings? And it's, nearly, 12 years after the original RCT was started by Children's Protection Society. So, there's courage as well as commitment, and the curiosity to find out, what can be supported, what does support the program, rather than a kind of closed view on how programs should run or how problems should be solved. So I think that sort of, sense of collaboration and partnership. And Sandra made reference to the supervision, and we have a model for reflective supervision done by the leadership team inside the centres and by Parkville with the leadership team. That is continuous, ongoing, regular, and the same with the induction into the model, the orientation into the model, the professional development. It's ongoing, it's responsive, it's learner-centred. It's, very little of it happens online. Again, the relationship is very important for supporting people to change their practice or to practice in different ways or to collaborate with each other to solve problems.
Brigid, while you're on that, we had a question come in from Sonia on sort of, do you have a specific structure or model for the professional development opportunities that educators are offered, and what are the key focus areas? I think you've touched on a lot of the key focus areas there, but is there anything else you want to add to Sonia's question?
Anne's just put pen to paper on this.
We do have a professional learning and development framework that guides our work, and Brigid's kind of hinted at some of the principles that underpin that. It is the backbone support to the staff. We believe in the staff, we believe in their capacity, but we understand they need professional development in real time, real place, real context. So it's not removed. You know, a lot of professional development happens in our sector, but often it's not relevant to the people and the place and the context. So I think that's the difference. And it's evidence informed. Everything we share with staff is evidence informed. Some of our own research and other research that we trust and respect. And so we're building the evidence base as well. And so that's also important. So we can help inform work in the universal sector from the work we're doing in the replication centres. And some of our replication centres are already doing that. They're sharing what they've learned doing the replication with other staff in their other services. So that's that capacity building the sector through really well-defined and principled professional development.
Great, thanks, Anne. Cheryl, I want to come back.
Am I mute? No, I was just going to say it's a model that's not sort of prescriptive for the actions of the educators or teachers. I think that's quite important. So all the professional development is really supporting, sharing evidence, sharing practice knowledge, sharing expertise, and supporting the educators and teachers to make professional judgments, to use their own judgment in how they respond to children and families, rather than having a prescriptive way of doing it. I think that's really important. That does support the sense of confidence and the sense of respect that the teachers and educators feel for their professional knowledge and their skills.
Thanks, Brigid. Cheryl, I was going to come back to you. You mentioned earlier that it's not been an easy process, but that you've done it. I was wondering whether you can share a little on some of the challenges that you faced there and what have been some of the learnings around those.
Sure. So particularly early on, when we put ourselves forward for this project, was really where were we going to run it from? Was a big one, because not everyone has a spare childcare centre vacant and ready to run a program such as this. So there was a lot of time that we had and work that we had to put into actually identifying a suitable facility that the City of Ballarat owned. We found one which was not quite fit for purpose in terms of the infrastructure aspect. It had a kindergarten that was operating from it, which was not as fully subscribed as it could have been, probably because the infrastructure was not right. So we had to invest quite significant money into upgrading that facility to be able to run it. So that took time and resources, and getting the support from the organisation to make the commitment to invest in infrastructure, which was in our community infrastructure plan for redevelopment, but not for several years' time. So to manage budgets, you've got to bring it forward to actually get into the building. So there was a lot of work that we had to do to make the facility fit for purpose. But I think too, that part of the challenges were around, and still challenges, but they're good challenges to have, is around our work with our other partners as well. So keeping our stakeholders engaged and understanding, continuing to communicate with them around the value of the program, the outcomes for children, referral pathways into the program. So that's work. I think that's been one of the learnings that and is an ongoing good challenge to have, is to really keep those connections and communication open with other partners outside of our Safe Haven program as well, because it has benefits in the long run.
Thank you. So important bringing all those sort of key stakeholders along the journey. Mona, any sort of a couple of key challenges and learnings from those that you'd like to share?
Sure. I think finding the right people for the service. We know how challenging it is in recruitment in this sector in a standard service. So I think finding the right people with the right skill sets or the right passion to be in this type of program, which is going to be working with a lot of vulnerable families rather than maybe one or two in a service where people usually work. So that was obviously a unique challenge that took us a bit more time than maybe anticipated to really find the right people to be in the right roles. I think just along the professional development, we've talked a lot about that and what our educators and team members are getting. And it's so important that they're getting that in the individual moment of the issues that arise. But I think one of the other things that we've learned as part of this process is our team needed to learn how to work in a multidisciplinary team. That's also not a standard approach for our teams in an early learning sector. So this is a big learning piece for us. So part of that professional development is also learning to work with those other disciplines and understanding their expertise and their knowledge and how we collaborate to make really smart decisions for everyone involved. So I think that's also been a key aspect for us and something that we're continuing to support with our teams to make sure it's a really smooth operational model and just so unique to an early learning service that people that have worked in another service would not have had that experience. So it's a great experience and a great opportunity, but also can present challenges when it's something we haven't done before.
Yeah, thank you for sharing some of the complexities in that for the workforce. And I'm sure it wouldn't be a surprise to anyone that workforce has been a challenge in this. I wonder, we've got just a couple of minutes left. I wonder, Sandra, or if you want to jump in on what you're seeing that makes you believe the model is working and that it's possible to implement.
Yeah, look, I think seeing the challenges overcome, and I think the commitment that we have from partners, from staff, from our organisation to really embrace this as a journey with some challenges involved, but also to be able to see children really thriving and staff really proud of the work that they're doing. I think that's really it for us, is really seeing the outcomes of what is the shared intent. And it's like all the challenges are worth it because you can navigate them. It's been great to have the other sites to be able to compare notes, and we've got lots of similarities, a few differences, but lots of similarities in terms of the journeys that we've taken. But I think in all cases, I think we all feel very much that it's been worth both the investment of time, resources, and working through some of the challenges.
Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, and I agree with Sandra. Like, incredibly proud of the work of the team, and I think, you know, it's not the style of work for everyone, and it does attract a certain individual to be wanting to work in this space. But I think, you know, in terms of just evidence around what we're seeing around the benefits of this program is even things like parts of the model. We're looking at how we can implement that in other locations because we see the benefit of what's happening at our Safe Haven site. So how can we use funding or redistribute resources in a different way so that we can start to utilise some of the benefits of this program elsewhere? For example, the family support worker role is one that we have, you know, some hours in other locations as well.
Great, sure. Just finally, I wonder, Brigid, do you want to share with us quickly sort of thoughts on what next? So this is a replication phase at the moment. What are you thinking about what comes next? Oh, we can't hear you, Brigid. You're on mute.
Sorry. The whole trial is an evidence gathering exercise as well as a meeting the needs of children and families exercise. We really, Parkville Institute as a board are in the process of thinking about what would the next stage be. So what would scaling up look like? What are the right timelines for scaling up? What's the right footprint for scaling up? What have been the enablers? How can we kind of build on the enablers? How can we address challenges effectively? So we're really in the process of thinking about that, and we only have to wait till the end of this year, I think, for the one-year outcomes, because of course all the anecdotal evidence is that the children will have similar outcomes, but we don't know that. And so it will be good to have the hard data to know whether the outcomes have been similar or different in any way, and to have the family's feedback as well. Yeah. So we're in the stage of really thinking about what we've learned in this journey, what we've learned from our partners, the advice and the wisdom that's been shared by our partners.
Thank you. And thank you so much to all of our panelists today. I feel we're just touching the surface of this conversation. Hopefully there will be many more. But I want to thank all of the service providers who've come for your work over this time, for Parkville Institute. Deeply grateful also, of course, to all the funders who've been on this journey with Parkville Institute, the Commonwealth Government, the Victorian Government, Paul Ramsay Foundation, the Bryan Foundation, TDM Foundation, the Berg Family Foundation, Wiggs Family Foundation. Acknowledge the evaluation partner, Orange Compass for its support, Social Ventures for its support in helping the setup and operationalisation. Next steps, replication project going on until next year. The baseline evaluation report, as Anne shared, is coming out soon, and then the first year evaluation report early next year. Please do reach out if you'd like to connect about this work. We'd love to hear you. Send any questions to inquiries@parkvilleinstitute.org. Thank you so much for everyone who's joined today. Look forward to discussing this again with you another time.